You know, it's very interesting because my own story is a story of many odds, because I am born with albinism. I was born with albinism. My mother, you know, being just a single mother because my father took off. But I had a dream that one day I would become a member of parliament. I would become a leader in this country. And I'm very happy I became the first with albinism in the National Assembly and in the Senate, and the first government spokesman with albinism. And also the first assistant minister, CAS, even if ilizama kidogo hapo. Now, why do we keep on saying these things? It's not to gloat, no. It's because we are the unlikely. Professor Michael Ndurumo here is unlikely. How do you get a professor who is deaf? How do you get Stephen Wadhigo, who is a software engineer, who is deaf? How do you get my good mentee, Ashura Michael, yeah, a lawyer, but now working for the United Nations? In fact, I remember I had to write a letter to the law school to have Ashura Michael admitted because they couldn't find it possible for her to get to law school. And we worked very hard because I have also, God has blessed me to open up the political space for people with disabilities, to have a deaf person going to parliament and making history. We were not successful in the last general elections because we wanted either Ashura or Kakiri to go through, but I believe it's just a matter of time that sooner than later we shall have a deaf member of parliament in the history of this republic. It is going to happen. It is going to happen because when I was in the 11th Parliament, I made an amendment to the Persons with Disabilities Act number 14 of 2003, whereby I was able to have Kenya Sign Language being equated to English and Kiswahili in all areas of examination and qualification and all forms of equivalence. So today, when Professor Michael Ndurumo says that it's the third language, the third national language, it is actually true that this kind of provision has been very important. But earlier than that, I was also privileged to be in the reference group when this Constitution of Kenya 2010 was being made. We were 32 of us, and I was representing persons with disabilities. And I'm proud to say I played a very critical role in having Kenya Sign Language being recognized as a language in Article 7 of our Constitution. So I am a true ally to deaf people, and that is why you see even today, every communication that we do from the Office of the Government Spokesperson, whether they are deaf people in the room or not, there must be a Kenya Sign Language interpreter. I think there is Judy Kivuva. Where is Judy? Yes, Judy is our in-house sign language interpreter. Let's clap for her. And also, all our videos, before they go out, they must have a caption for sign language, because we have to speak and walk the talk. It is not just a matter of, you know, putting it out there. We have to speak and walk the talk. Kenya is the proud host of the Africa Conference on Deafness 2024 from the 27th to 29th November in Nairobi. This milestone event will bring together policymakers, advocates, and community leaders to advance dialogue and action on the rights, empowerment, and inclusion of deaf persons and those with disabilities across the continent. This aligns with the theme of this year's International Day of Persons with Disabilities, which is amplifying the leadership of persons with disabilities for an inclusive and sustainable future. Through this conference, Kenya reaffirms its commitment to lead Africa in elevating the voices and leadership of persons with disabilities, fostering a future where inclusion and sustainability go hand in hand. The rights of persons with disabilities are enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution and protected under the law in Article 54, which clearly explains the rights in terms of equality, access, and inclusion for all persons with disabilities. To safeguard these rights and support the population, the government established the National Council for Persons with Disabilities under the Persons with Disabilities Act number 14 of 2003. Its mandate is to oversee and advocate for the well-being, empowerment, and inclusion of persons with disabilities. This council now, which I was very privileged to be a pioneer board member at only the age of 22, is now 20 years old. So we've really had 20 years of inclusion of persons with disabilities, and also in the same vein, we shall be having a celebration of these 20 years again in this month of November. Empowering persons with disabilities through economic empowerment. The government is promoting economic empowerment for persons with disabilities through targeted programs during the financial year 2023-2024. 574 self-help groups were connected to funding resources such as the Uwezo Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, Youth Enterprise Fund, and the National Youth Opportunities Towards Advancement Project, NYOTA, under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. Additionally, the LPO financing program supported 30 disability-owned businesses under the Access to Government Procurement Opportunities AGPO program, equipping them to engage in government contracts. You remember there is the 30% for women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And this is very important because people with disabilities are also youth and they're also women. So they should actually be able to be taking the lion's share of the 30%. However, that is still not the case because of issues of empowerment and self-awareness and also capacity. There's also the Tools of Trade program, further boosted the economic participation, providing 57 beneficiaries with startup kits in sectors such as catering, automotive engineering, agriculture, and beauty. And that is very important, so let's have many people applying for that. Equipment and infrastructure support to institutions. In pursuit of accessible quality education for persons with disabilities, the government upgraded infrastructure and equipment in 6 learning institutions, enhancing their enrollment capacity and the quality of their educational offerings. When it comes to assistive devices and services, to support independent and dignified living, the government, through the council, distributed assistive devices to 4,222 persons, including wheelchairs, crutches, hearing aids, prosthetic limbs, and screen readers. And I'm very sure the council is really collaborating with KSDC on this. Through the mobility and orientation training program, 17 individuals with newly acquired disabilities received training to live independently. James Kerigo, who received a prosthetic limb through this program, shared that this support has not only transformed his life, but has also allowed him to return to work and regain his independence. There is also the Education Scholarship and Cash Transfer Program. The government has provided scholarships to 2,332 learners with disabilities and extended monthly cash stipends to 47,000 households caring for those with Kenyans with severe disabilities. Additionally, 18,291 beneficiaries were enrolled, totaling to 65,291 under the cash transfer program. So you can see this greatest increase of 18,000 within less than 2 years is really, really commendable. On the albinism support program, the program, which I'm very proud to be the pioneer, supported people with albinism by providing 3,840 beneficiaries with sunscreen lotions, cancer screening for 1,727 individuals, and eye care services for 500 students, addressing their unique needs of people with albinism. In fact, we've just come from discharging one person, Wangoi from Muranga, Mathioya, who had a huge cancer lesion on her forehead. Autism and other related developmental disabilities support program. This new initiative, which of course I was very instrumental in Parliament on the same, has also been able to provide 7,669 beneficiaries with incontinence supplies to 1,796 individuals, and essential drugs, which is a provision of the Persons with Disabilities Act, those who are in constant need of medical care and attention, to 1,395 persons with autism and related developmental disabilities. I think let's clap for this. let's really clap for this. Because when I initiated the albinism support program, in fact, I remember writing that when at the University of Leeds, the concept paper, it has now also led to a specific program for those with severe disabilities, autism and other developmental disabilities. And this is the new funding model, Mr. Francis Nganga, Madam Rhoda. We have specific kitties for specific types of disabilities. So I'm also calling upon for a specific allocation for those who are deaf, so that it is able to meet the needs of the deaf specifically. We already have wheelchairs and crutches for those with physical disabilities. We have now sunscreen. We have skin cancer treatment, eye care services. We have protective clothing and awareness creation under the program that is about $1 million, or 100 million the Kenya shillings thereabout. Now we have another 100 million for those with autism and developmental disorders. Let us not also fail to have those with who are deaf also getting their own kitty. It is possible. When it comes to affordable housing program, the affordable housing program is transforming access to secure. Before I come to that, beg your pardon, we are also working with the Public Service Commission, and we've done a lot of work, by the way, to make sure that 5% of all the workforce in government is persons with disabilities, because that is a provision of Article 54(2). So what do? We make sure that anyone with disability who applies for a job in government and is qualified, they get a first priority. It is the same thing also for those who are teachers. There are even some marks they get purely on the fact that they have a disability, because when we joined, we only had 0.2% of workers being persons with disabilities, the civil servants, public servants. But I'm proud to say the number has increased to 1.4%, but we still need to do more. And we are working very hard to ensure that we return and reinstate the disability mainstreaming indicator in the performance contracts of all ministries, departments, and agencies. Because we are not yet there. We cannot say 1.4% of people being included in employment, that has actually meant that people with disabilities are already onboarded. They are not. So that is something that we work with, and we'll ensure that it actually included. Now let me turn to the 5 pillars of the Better Plan. Affordable Housing Program. The Affordable Housing AHP is a transformational program that we are working very hard to ensure that we have access to a secure and accessible housing for persons with disabilities as part of the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, recognizing housing as a fundamental need for independence and social inclusion. The program mandates that all units adhere to universal design standards with features such as ramps, wide doorways, accessible bathrooms, and elevators in multi-story buildings. Additionally, a reserved percentage of units specifically to cater for vulnerable groups, including persons with disabilities, while rent-to-own schemes allow for gradual ownership through affordable monthly payments. Through the Housing Fund, which offers long-term, low-interest loans, persons with disabilities will receive financial support to overcome economic barriers to home ownership. For example, Janet Ndungo, a wheelchair user, highlighted how accessible design features in her new home enables her to live independently and particularly fully in community life, marking a significant stride towards inclusive housing in Kenya. We found these beneficiaries in housing programs of the government that we are moving around, inspecting or highlighting, really, as the Office of the Government Spokesperson. And it's good I explained to you that currently we have 124,000 units being constructed in 75 projects in 37 counties. 160,000 people are employed there, and the cheapest house you can get is 500,000 in Kwale, and you pay only 10%, 50,000, and then you pay about 3,200 a month, even here in Mukuru. By the end of the year, God willing, we shall already hand over 1,080 units in Mukuru kwa Ruben. So you see, it's a very transformational program. The government intends to construct over 200,000 houses a year. We have only a mortgage of 50,000, mortgages. But now this, in 10 years, because that means we will be able to do 1 million houses, God willing, we'll be able to have hosted If you multiply that by 5, about 5 million Kenyans. And that is really, really significant, because in terms of supply and demand, it means even the cost of building will come down. Let's come to universal health coverage for persons with disabilities. As you may be aware, that we have now shifted, the shift to SHIF from NHIF. People also say SHA, which is a whole, architecture, but we are saying the shift to SHIF, and this is what we call Ruto care. Ruto care. If you have Obamacare, then we also have Ruto care. Yeah? Can we also say Ruto care? Ruto care. Can we say shift to SHIF? Shift to? From NHIF to SHIF. Shift to SHIF. Hashtag shift to SHIF. Hashtag Ruto care. Our commitment to healthcare access for all is bolstered by universal health coverage initiative tailor-made to the needs of persons with disabilities. Through partnerships with healthcare providers, we aim at enhancing the availability of specialized services, including rehabilitative care, assistive technologies, and preventive healthcare programs, ensuring that every Kenyan, regardless of ability, has access to comprehensive healthcare. Let me explain this further, that in the new SHIF, the shift to SHIF, Ruto care, now hospitals can be able, or through that card, you can be able to be bought for a wheelchair or an assistive device using your SHIF card. So it's very, very important. We have a package for persons with disabilities, and we hope it's going to be enhanced. It should also include hearing aids, and that means Kenya Society for the Deaf Children will be able to help us in that regard. Inclusive communication practices. The Office of the Government Spokesperson is actively implementing inclusive communication practices to ensure to persons with disabilities access to essential government information and services. The government has enhanced accessible formats, and various agencies are progressively implementing. For example, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties recently launched the first Person with Disabilities Training Political Education Manual, which is also available in Braille. The government, through the Kenya Institute of Special Education, has launched a training program aimed at equipping public officers with Kenya Sign Language skills, and to this date, the program has successfully trained 354 public officers, significantly enhancing service delivery and accessibility for the deaf community. And I'm sure, Professor Ndurumo, you want to participate in that and ensure that that program is really, really comprehensive. The government cares deeply about persons who are deaf or hearing loss, and is committed to promoting inclusive communication practices to ensure to deaf persons that they will be able to engage with the public in terms of their public service delivery and social interaction on an equal basis with others. Through the Kenya Sign Language Bill 2023, which was also introduced in the last parliament, the government aims at promoting and developing the use of Kenya Sign Language. It includes provision for the inclusion of sign language in the education curriculum, its use in legal proceedings, and its promotion in public settings. The government of Kenya warmly invites all stakeholders, including policymakers, advocates, community leaders, and allies from across the continent, to join us at the Africa Conference on Deafness 2024 at the Weston Hotel from the 27th to 29th of November 2024. This conference is a unique opportunity to collaborate, share insights, interlocute, and forge a collective pathway forward, meeting the needs of the deaf community and persons with disabilities. Together, let us advance strategies, policies, and actions that promote inclusive accessibility and empowerment, paving the way for a more inclusive and sustainable future for all. Wakenya wenzangu, ningependa kuwarai kwamba ni muhimu sana tuweze kujishughulisha na watu ambao wako na ulemavu wa kutokusikia, pengine tukisema hivyo, watu ambao ni deaf, watu ambao ni Wakenya wenzetu, na tuna kongamano kubwa kabisa tarehe 27 mpaka tarehe 29 Novemba pale Weston Hotel. Njooni kwa wingi, zaidi ya nchi 18 zimeweza tayari kujisajili. Kuja uweze kusikia ni vipi wewe unaweza kumsaidia mtoto ambaye ana ulemavu huu kuweza kujisimamia. Tunashukuru sana, kuna Profesa Michael Ndurumo ambaye yupo hapa, ambaye mimi amenifundisha kule chuo kikuu kupitia vitabu vyake, na yeye ni mtu ambaye amejisimamia yeye mwenyewe. Kuna mwenzetu pale Steven Wadhigo ambaye ni mhandisi, software engineer, ambaye yuko pamoja na sisi hapa, na wengine wengi. Tuna mawakili, tuna waalimu, ili kuonyesha kwamba ulemavu sio kulemaa. Na tukija kwa pamoja, kila mtu aweze kuchangia, tutaweza kutengeneza miundombinu ambayo itawasaidia watoto ambao wamezaliwa na ulemavu huu ama kuupata wakati wanavyokuwa, waweze kuishi maisha ya kawaida fauka ya zile changamoto ambazo zimeweza kukithiri katika maumbile yetu. Mara nyingi sana mambo ya ulemavu hayatokani na vile ambavyo ni mazingira tu, lakini ni zile dhana potofu, ilhali watu wanaweza kufikiri kwamba kama wewe huwezi kusikia, pia huwezi kufikiri, pia huwezi kujimudu, pia huwezi kujisimamia. Lakini tunasema la hasha, huo ni uongo mtupu. Watu ambao wana ulemavu huu wa kutokusikia wanaweza pia kusikia, wanahisia na kujisimamia na kuanzisha familia na kuwa wataalamu wa nyanja aina mbalimbali. Njooni kwa pamoja tuingie katika hii kongamano, tusemezane ili tuweze kutoa dhana mbadala, njia mbadala za kuweza kuwasaidia Wakenya wenzetu, ili wasiwe watu wanategemea wale wengine, bali wawe watu wa kutegemewa. Kwa sababu Kenya hii ni nchi ya watu wote. Kenya hii ni nchi ambayo imeweza kuweka mikakati na sera za kuhakikisha kwamba hata kama una ulemavu unaweza kufaidi na miradi ya kiserikali. Kwa mfano kama ni hizi nyumba ambazo zinazojengwa sasa hivi, kuna zile ambazo zinajengwa zikizingatia zile kanuni za kuhakikisha kwamba kama wewe una ulemavu wa viungo, pia unaweza kuishi hata ghorofa la 16 kupitia hizi lift, kupitia zile ramps na kadhalika. Bei imeweza kupunguzwa kwa sababu kama tumekuwa tukizungumza na Mheshimiwa Francis Ng'ang'a hapa kwamba kuna ule mtagusano kati ya ulemavu na ufukara. Lakini sasa tunataka kuweka pesa mfukoni kwa Wakenya. Ndiposa unaona katika Baraza la Kitaifa la Watu wenye Ulemavu, National Council for Persons with Disabilities, ambalo pia linasherehekea miaka 20 tangu kuzinduliwa, na nilikuwa mmoja wapo wa wakurugenzi waanzilishi. Tunaona sasa watu wanapata pesa za kwenda kufanya zabuni za kiserikali ambazo zimetengwa 30% pamoja na akina mama na pia vijana. Pia ukiangazia zaidi katika mpango huu wetu wa shift ambao tunaita pia SHA, the shift to shift, Ruto Care, pia kuna ile package ambayo iko hapo ya kuwanunulia watu zile wheelchair, crutches na kadhalika, na hata vifaa vya kusikia vyema kupitia mpango ule. Ukiangazia zaidi pia tumehakikisha kwamba pia watu wenye ulemavu wanaajiriwa na tume ya kuajiri wanafanyikazi wa umma ukipenda PSC, wakipatiwa kipaumbele, ndiposa tuweze kufikia lile lengo kwamba 5% ya waajiriwa wote serikalini wafanyikazi wawe ni watu wenye ulemavu. Nataka kuwarai wa Kenya tuungane kwa pamoja, kwa sababu hii Kenya ina maono makubwa. Hii Kenya ina tajriba kubwa zaidi. Kenya ni nchi ambayo ina rutuba. Kenya ni nchi ambayo itaweza kuwa inajisimamia yenyewe. Kwa sababu ukiangalia kama hili kongamano ni la kwanza katika bara la Afrika. Limefanyika wapi? Si hapa Kenya. Mwaka uliopita na mwakani huu na hata miaka mingine. Kwa sababu mbiu ya mgambo ikilia kuna nini? Kuna jambo. Na jambo hili ni kuhakikisha kwamba watoto wenye ulemavu huu wanaweza pia kukaa kwenye meza na wakakula na wafalme, wakaonekana pia wao wanatosha mboga. Wanaweza kuwa pia wanaweza kuoa na kuwa mababa na mama ambao wanasimamia wengine pia ambao wanasikia. Hii ni lugha ishara. Lugha ishara hii ndio lugha ya 3 ya kitaifa ya Kenya kulingana na kipengele cha 7 cha katiba yetu ya mwaka 2010. Tuungane kwa pamoja kwa sababu tuna nchi nzuri, lakini hatutaweza kufanya vile kwa sababu tukiwa peke yetu, kwa sababu Mswahili aliposema kidole kimoja hakiui chawa hakuwa amekosea. Kenya itainuka, Kenya itasimama, Kenya itanawiri kwa umoja na uzalendo. Mimi ni Mkenya mzalendo. Je, wewe? Asanteni sana.